Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The rising Croatian prospect Filip Hrgovic has been added to the Regis Pro Grey and Mo Hooker card on April 17th. He will be fighting Jerry Forrest, who has a record of 26-3. The WBC International Heavyweight title will be on the line. So what I'll do in this video is get to the press release, the quotes, and then on to a few thoughts, because I see that this is being sold somewhat as a step up, but for me it's more of the same. Forrest might be slightly better than Eric Molina, but the level is much of a muchness, because when you consider Molina is still rated 37 on BoxRec, Forrest 91, I mean, there is a gap in who Molina has faced and who Forrest has faced, and I expect this is going to be a brutal knockout of Jerry Forrest in this one, but I'll come to that. So starting off with the press release, you can see here on screen, here's the graphic at the top, etc. They didn't even bother to get Forrest into the frame, so I don't know what that says about this fight, but in terms of the quotes here, we'll skip past all the fluff at the top. So Hrgovic says, "I'm looking forward to getting back in the ring. I have good memories from fighting at the MGM National Harbor. This is where I made my American debut when I knocked out Gregory Corbin in the first round, and I've been training hard to give the fans another exciting performance on April 17. Jerry Forrest is a good boxer, he is a southpaw with a good record, and I'm expecting a tough fight, but I'm confident I will beat him. 2019 was a great year for me. I fought in America, Mexico, and Saudi Arabia. I had 3 fights against 3 strong opponents and got 3 knockout wins. This year will be even better. My goal has always been to become a world champion, and now I'm closing in on that goal. I'm coming for belts." So you note there that he said he fought in America, Mexico, and Saudi Arabia. I'll come to that later because he's been used as a mid-card filler at this point. But his promoter, Nissa Sauerland, says Filip is in fantastic shape and ready to start his 2020 campaign in style. Last time out at the MGM National Harbor, he introduced himself to the American fight fans with an explosive first-round knockout, and they can expect a similar display this time around. Whenever Filip steps into the ring, you're guaranteed excitement. He is the future of the heavyweight division, and it's only a matter of time before he's fighting for world honors. That's Nissa Sauerland, co-promoter of Filip Hrgovic. Obviously, Hrgovic is also with Matchroom on a co-promotional deal. Currently 10-0. And in terms of this fight, I see why they're having it. There's a part of me that thinks, a guy like Hrgovic at 10-0, he just needs to add a little bit more fat to the resume, because when he's calling out fighters and saying he wants them, he can't get them because they can just write him off as a prospect with next to nothing on his resume. So he has to have a bit of fat building in there. But also, I think just practically, he's going to find it hard to get fights because he is a dangerous commodity. He is obviously a well-schooled amateur who's turned into the pros and made a good fist of it so far. His power is above average, and in this fight against Jerry Forrest, he's going to show that again. He will knock Jerry Forrest out, and I would say it's probably going to be within in 5 rounds, I want to say. Forrest, if you haven't seen him before, he is a good mover. He's got a record of 26-3. And before his last loss, which was against Jermaine Franklin, and that was a little debatable. I thought Forrest actually shaded that one, but Franklin was given the nod. He showed good ring craft, he's a good mover, and he will make it a little bit tricky for Filip Hrgovic. He'll have to, cut off the ring, track him down, and he's really going to have to get into his work to break him down and stop him. But I do think he is going to catch up with him eventually, so it might take a few more rounds than Filip Hrgovic has been spending against other guys who are a bit more stiff and stationary, but he will get the job done here. And I think people will be saying after this, well, why isn't Filip Hrgovic in better fights? And that's already the question a lot of fight fans are asking. And if you follow this channel for any length of time, I'm very high on Filip Hrgovic, and they've made a lot of statements and comments about wanting to push him along a lot quicker than is actually happening. So since he signed with Matchroom, it actually hasn't quite gone the sort of trajectory upwards as they were hoping. They were basically saying that they wanted him in massive fights this year. And clearly fighting a Jerry Forrest to some extent, is just a higher level sort of stay busy type of fight. For a normal prospect, this is a test you go through, but Filip Hrgovic is a little bit past that normal prospect sort of stage. He has been sort of fighting, decent competition, better competition than most prospects at this stage of his career. And I know it sounds like I'm really sort of writing off and underrating Jerry Forrest, but, he has a certain level in the heavyweight division, and he'd built his record up over a number of years after a couple of losses 5-6 years ago. I think it was to Michael Hunter and Gerald Washington. He rattled off 18 straight wins against very low-level opposition. So the record looks good, 26-3, but really there's almost next to nothing that's actually on it. So this is going to be a case where Filip Hrgovic on April 17th is going to cut a path through Jerry Forrest and bring up win number 11. And if they are going to have fights where, against the level of a Jerry Forrest, who's not a top 50 guy, he is somewhere between 60 and 100, 91 on BoxRec probably doesn't give his talent level the sort of respect it deserves, but in some ways, that does reflect the fighters he's been facing. As I said, he's been padding his record. So 26-3, only 91 in the world on BoxRec. So that tells you his opposition has been poor to some extent. But if they're going to do these sorts of fights for Filip Hrgovic, they've got to run him out more often. What is the point in having this guy, only fight every 4 or 5 months? Because at this point in his career, because Filip Hrgovic is, 27 years old, and he's 10-0, heading into his 11th fight now, if they're going to run these sorts of fights, have him out every couple of months, because he can do it, and he can take out these guys along the way. As he steps up to much bigger and better fights, as we're all hoping he would, then obviously the wheels will start to sort of slow down a bit, and it'll be every sort of 4 to 6 months in terms of a fight. That's just the way it is in the heavyweight division for most guys who are in the sort of top 20. And as it is, Filip Hrgovic is already rated 15th in the world on the strength of his resume so far. That's according to BoxRec. But he does have some rankings and sanctioning bodies, and he will be hoping to keep working his way up. But some of this level of opposition, I think for a lot of fans, it's getting a little bit frustrating. And I see some mainstream media selling this as a step up, but for me, it's more of the same. So I hope he goes in there, does the business, and on to the next one. And they can start getting him some more meaningful step-up fights, because he is ready for that sort of top 30, top 40 sort of level of guys. Guys like Eric Molina, but less faded. So you can think the likes of a Christian Hammer, a Johan Dorper. He needs those guys right now, because that's the path that he's on. Having a guy that is in Jerry Forrest, for me, is a sort of step sideways rather than forward. But what do you make of this fight? Jerry Forrest, Filip Hrgovic, the WBC International Heavyweight title on the line, April 17th. Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.